5 years ago, he had disappeared one night. No one ever saw him alive again. The next morning, his body was found inside this very grave, wearing the same uniform, holding the same shovel he used to dig with. The soil trembled. He stumbled backward. "Who's there?" he shouted, but only a scratching sound answered. A dreadful rhythmic scrape of nails clawing through the earth. And then, a pale hand burst out of the ground. Then another. Then a face, white, rotted, eyes wide open. The silence of the night. There are some sounds that only the brave can hear. The rest either close their ears or never wake up again. St. Augustine Cemetery was one of those places, a forgotten graveyard at the edge of town. Its walls soaked in damp moss, and its tombstones buried under the fog of time. No one remembered when it was last cleaned, or when flowers were last placed there, except for one man, Thomas Gribbs. Thomas was the night caretaker, a quiet, weary old man whose eyes carried sleeplessness instead of peace. By day, he would sit in his tiny wooden cabin, sipping tea and writing new names into the register of the dead. But by night, when the whole city fell asleep, Thomas would walk between the graves, a lantern in one hand and a wooden stick tapping softly against the stones. People called him the graveyard shift man. Some kids even whispered that he could talk to the dead. And maybe they were right, because Thomas often mumbled to himself, nodding as if listening to someone whisper back. Once, a drunk man laughed at him. "You talk to corpses now, old fool?" Thomas didn't even smile. He just said, "If you ever walk past this place after midnight, you'll get your answer, but you won't live long enough to tell anyone." It was a cold night in November. The moon was hiding behind thick clouds, and the air smelled of wet soil and something rotten, like the ground itself was decaying. Thomas lit his lantern and began his nightly round. The echo of his walking stick, tock, 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 bounced between the tombs like a heartbeat in the dark. Then he stopped. Something drew his eyes toward one particular grave. The name carved into the stone read, Marcus Hales, and beneath it, a chilling line, "Shift never ends." Marcus had been the caretaker before Thomas. 5 years ago, he had disappeared one night. No one ever saw him alive again. The next morning, his body was found inside this very grave, wearing the same uniform, holding the same shovel he used to dig with. Thomas remembered that day well. Before leaving for his final round, Marcus had told him quietly, "Remember, Thomas, not every grave holds a corpse. Sometimes the earth takes the living too." A cold shiver ran down Thomas's spine. He knelt by Marcus's grave, pressed his palm to the soil. It was damp and strangely warm. Then he heard it, a faint murmur from beneath the ground. At first he thought it was the wind, but no, it was a voice. "We're not gone yet." Thomas froze. The lantern flickered, the air turned heavy, and suddenly the entire row of graves seemed to breathe. The soil trembled. He stumbled backward. "Who's there?" he shouted, but only a scratching sound answered. A dreadful rhythmic scrape of nails clawing through the earth. And then, a pale hand burst out of the ground. Then another. Then a face, white, rotted, eyes wide open. Thomas dropped his lantern. Its flames spread across the dirt, illuminating a nightmare. An entire line of graves, shifting, cracking, as if the dead were trying to climb out. From below came muffled screams. "Wrong name. We never left. We were buried alive." Thomas ran. He ran toward the gate, but it was locked. The old, rusted padlock clanged shut by itself. No matter how hard he pushed, the gate didn't move. And then, a voice behind him, low, hollow, but familiar. "I told you, Thomas, the shift never ends." Thomas turned, and there he was, Marcus, standing in the mist, his black coat torn, his eyes hollow, and the same shovel in his hand. But he wasn't standing. His feet floated just above the ground. "Marcus, you're dead," Thomas gasped. Marcus smiled faintly. "You kept the lantern burning for too long. Now it's your turn." The soil beneath Thomas's boots began to sink. His feet disappeared into the dirt, then his knees, then his waist. "Please, I didn't hurt anyone," he screamed. Marcus leaned closer. His voice turned cold as ice. "They all say that, Thomas, but you listened to them, didn't you? Now, it's time they listened to you." A deep, thunderous sound erupted, and the lantern went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Only the sound of soil falling shut remained. By morning, the graveyard was still again. The new caretaker arrived for duty, noticing fresh shovel marks on the ground. Right beside Marcus's grave, a new tombstone had appeared. It read, "Thomas Gribbs, night watchman. Locals say when the clock strikes 3, a dim lantern light flickers among the graves. And if you listen closely, you can hear an old man whisper, 'The shift isn't over yet.' So if you ever pass by St. Augustine Cemetery on a rainy night and hear the sound of a shovel scraping the dirt, don't stop, don't look back, because those who do never leave."